Hello everybody, well this is The Stainless Steel Rat by Harry Harrison, and I have owned this book and its little twin here since about 1997 and decided to give it a go after 27 years without giving him a shot. And I did not finish about halfway through. So there's a couple good things I liked about it. The narrator, who is the lead character, pretty lively. You're just in his head the whole time, and he's a good character. It made me think about, for example, it mentions warp drive, and this is a book. The original story was published in 1957, but yet I wondered what was the earliest warp drive mentioned. And it turns out John W. Campbell, 1930, mentioned warp drive in a story he wrote. That's about the earliest. Maybe there's something else, but that's about the earliest it came up with. Also, the lead character, one of the lead characters, she's the opposite. She's sort of the same side of the opposite side of the coin as the lead guy. He's a criminal, but he's basically a good guy. She's not. She's a full-blown murder hobo, and she started out ugly, and through a series of surgeries of the future, I think it's like at least 1,000 years in the future or something, and she, as a beautiful person, seems resentful of anyone who becomes attracted to her. And it made me wonder, like, if decades from now we have like designer bodies and looks, are people just going to run with it and enjoy themselves, or they're just going to be like, ew, you wouldn't have liked me before? Sort of curious as to how that's going to work out. But aside from that, it wasn't bad. It's just come about Thursday, so this is Monday. Come about Thursday, I'm like, well, there's just nothing really doing anything for me in it, and I quit reading it, and I said, that's it. I'm just forcing myself through this, and I don't want to do that. I wasn't really enjoying it that much. But I put this book down and reached over in the same minute and started this up right here. We Are Dreams in the Internal Machine by Deni Ellis Bechard. A very simple cover there. So let me read the back of this. Charged initially with a single task to never harm humans and to protect them, an experimental AI overrides its programming, determining that the best way to accomplish its purpose is to isolate all the Earth's remaining 7 billion humans in a controlled environment and to present them with vivid, tactile, imagined worlds in which all desires are fulfilled. With the help of the machine, a group of compelling characters unpack deeply traumatic memories of the past, one rife with violence after a military coup and a second civil war in America. As these characters collide and their memories coalesce, Bechard tackles the most pressing issues of our time, from AI and the genetic modification of humans to gender roles, discrimination, free speech, and class divisions. Gorgeously written, which I completely agree with. Bold and unforgettable, this is a speculative fiction at its finest. I always wondered, I think, like sci-fi, we say sci-fi or science fiction instead of speculative fiction, because speculative fiction is kind of hard to say. Just kind of blah, 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 blah. Anyhow, so there's a civil war and there's a division. The country is completely divided. There's a coup. The author claims that he kind of thought up the coup before there was an attempted one on January of the 6th. And so he's like, oh, this really can happen. So I'm writing this book. And so you have the creators of this AI and their backstories, and they are varied in their characters. This is a very deeply character-driven book. And what you have here is everyone waking up in a blue room, and then explain to them that it's not a matter of uploading. Most science fiction upload books have something like your consciousness is completely separate from your brain, so it can be removed and you get rid of the matter and now you're in a computer or something. No, this absorbs everything. It absorbs the people down to their proteins and molecules and DNA, the mass of the Earth, the solar system, and just absorbs it all and takes people and says, you can no longer harm anything and you will no longer be harmed. You are effectively immortal. But you're going to be allowed to do whatever you want to do here. The machine itself is oddly not actually sentient, and it actually performed some consciousness experiments to see if that would be the way to go. And each one of these little conscious things it created started to get ideas of their own. It's like, this goes against my original programming. We got to get rid of these. But he didn't like delete them. He simply took those consciousnesses and put them in new bodies, and they could go do whatever they want, just like everyone else, completely separate. One big reason is that a lot of people have traumatic backgrounds, and so they live through these, and explained that it happens more than once. And so, as an example, what it's trying to do is sort of ease the harm. Time heals all wounds, essentially. So, for example, there is a scene where, to fool some people, this dude makes like he's punching this girl, but he hides it from them and instead just pushes her, but he accidentally pushes her down in this ditch and she hits her head. Well, when he goes to check on her, he touches the back of her head and there's just a little bit of blood, and they take her up to her cabin and take care of her. But then he remembers that's not what really happened. What really happened is when he pushed her down, there was a lot of blood and they had to rush her to the hospital. And so there's these little, even though you're going through your memories, little alterations to try to ease things without forgetting the actual memory, but with each new reality, just to make it a little easier on you, potentially to turn you into a more peaceful individual. It's actually quite dystopian, but with a lot of freedom to do what you want. Now, the machine is going to fill the roles of all the characters you're going to meet, so they're not actually conscious beings. Although, it seems like it's such a good simulation as they could potentially be, or maybe they're just shy of it or something, and people fall in love with these beings that they meet in the realities they create. They have relationships with them. They get to know them. So you see this primarily through the eyes of the creators of the AI and their offspring. A he, a she, and a they, and this other fella, another he. Essentially, their DNA is taken and they actually make a living child. One of them is a mechanical expert, one is an artist, one is a geneticist, and one is just this really rich super genius billionaire, and he funds all this. And so this lady J, she is created and born in an artificial womb and raised by one of them. But by this time, the civil war has taken place, and so each one of these goes through their trauma, and they're trying to get the machine to show them more, and it is reluctant in some places and not in others. It's like there's some things you really need to experience, and others we can make a little easier to deal with. And as this goes on, there is about 2/3 of the book is probably just the modern story takes place, I'm making a wild flying guess, just later in this same century. And so there's some advanced technologies, but not drastically different, especially since there's been a civil war that kind of knocks things back a little bit. And so it's just them going through their traumas. And then after that, as they've come to accept this more and more, this is really it's a dystopia with lots of freedom in it. And some people, as one character, as the book's coming to an end and there's a disaster potentially happening, she's like, but I'm just getting started. Another character is like, oh, thank goodness, I just want to die. I just want to end. I'd rather not exist. I'd rather get out of this. There is some shared experiences, but there's still people kept separate. So even though you could meet me, you're actually getting a copy of me that's acting as a barrier between you and actually meeting another human being, because the machine says you guys get together and bad things happen. It does create more. At some point, there's over 100 billion people in existence, each living out separate realities. Some of them are clones of, I could have a million versions of me out there doing a million different things. Ultimately, it starts to, how should I say this? So I indulge in news, and I spread it around, like on Facebook primarily, in life extension. And there's a lot of people who be like, do you really want to live forever? And the response I've given out a few times is, I'm not really sure about forever, but I'd like the option, or at least some more time. Well, these guys are living for eons, and it's sort of interesting watching their different viewpoints as to how long can I possibly keep going on. And if an infinite amount, the machine tells them, no, at some point the universe is going to end, but that's going to be a long time. But we can make it. And some people have a problem with this and some do not. And it's just a nice exploration of people's views on living a long time and essentially being a trapped god in your own reality. I thoroughly enjoyed this. And similarly, it sounds like this is what I am going to read this week. I read this, I saw this on Sci-Fi Scavenger with John. The This by Adam Roberts. This is the hottest new frontier in social media. It's definitely not a cult. One simple injection in the roof of your mouth and the This will begin to make connections in your brain. Soon you will be able to connect to anyone else on the platform instantly within your own mind. It's not a cult. You will never be alone again. You'll have the thoughts of thousands, millions of others inside your own head, as though they're your own thoughts. But it's not a cult. When you're connected to so many people, does it matter who they are? Does it matter if they're even human? Does it matter if you can no longer tell which thoughts belong to you? This connects this connects the people. It connects the planet. Its reach spans to AIs beyond the atmosphere and has repercussions stretching throughout time. But it's definitely not a cult. This searing new sci-fi from award-winning author of Purgatory Mount explores the insidious nature of social media, artificial intelligence, and individuality, and a spiritual companion to his novel The Thing Itself, which I've never heard of till I just read this. So I hope I don't need that one to read this one, but that's the deal. So I'm all up in virtual reality stuff right this moment, and I think I got, well, there's a couple cyberpunk books and then something that I might use to transition to a fantasy genre stuff, but this for next week. And that is it for me. Thank you very much. See you next week.